Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for stepping into another PFE video series where culture and community meet. My name is Carolyn Plascencia, and today's topic is serving and supporting the underserved worker. Serving and supporting the underserved worker. I have a really good friend with 20 years of workforce development experience. He is honest. He is humble. He is hungry. He is always serving and leading the change. He is an impact manager and an assistant director for the Labor One Stop at the Miguel Contreras Foundation. Armando Loza, amigo, thank you so much for stepping into the PFE video series.
Carolyn, thank you for having me. Such a wonderful introduction. It's very humbling to be a part of this and to help support any effort that you're attached to.
Oh, I appreciate it. I can't believe we've known each other for so long. And I can't believe where we came from, which is why I think our hearts are really invested in this type of conversation. So my first question to you is, what does it mean to support the underserved worker?
Yeah, but it's really important to know, like, partnerships and friendships and how it's cultivated into now. And I think we've probably known each other for 30 years, right?
Yes.
Or around 30 plus years. And,
oh, yes.
We've played similar sports, have known similar friends. And, going back to what is an underserved worker, growing up in the communities that we grew up with in, right? And so Southeast Los Angeles, and primarily, I think Maywood and Huntington Park. So go Maywood and go HP, Bell High School. The definition of an underserved worker is very broad. And we could dive really deep into conversation as an impact manager and a recent graduate of USC in social entrepreneurship through Marshall. We really talk about what is an underserved worker and what are underserved communities. And at the end of the day, I think we can narrow it down to communities who do not have potentially access or they're not equitable, misrepresented on several levels. But also at the core is, lack of resources and lack of funding. And so underserved workers have these characteristics and have these similar barriers to employment. And it is primarily around lack of education and lack of resources.
Got it.
And so the past 20 plus years working in Southeast Los Angeles, my definition of an underserved worker can be much different. Every community is different, and every space in LA County is somewhat different. But at the core of it is workers who lack access to resources and lack access to some of these opportunities. And then going back to like diving deep into individuals who need help in shifting this mindset, right? This mindset of a worker. And so I'm a fan and I'm an advocate of health and wellness in the workspace. And we talk about physical health, mental health, spiritual health, and these core components of health around workforce and workplace. And so underserved workers is a broad topic, but it's at the core of it's individuals who don't have access to some of these resources that we are trying to bring in and incorporate into this pathway to success.
Got it. I couldn't agree with you more. That definitely has been such a hot topic within my business sector when it comes to staffing, really recruiting. A lot of the labor force is the underserved. And so we're having different conversations as far as how can we continue to elevate and grow and have them engage. And a lot of it is around mental health and education and health and well-being. So I couldn't agree with you more. Now, my next question is, what do you learn daily from the actual workings within these communities? What are you learning daily about that?
Yeah, I mean, every day is something new, right? And every day is a new challenge, and they're ever so changing. So just going back to like this idea of you mentioned you're talking to businesses and companies, whether it's for profit or nonprofit or public sector, um, and this notion of hiring individuals who have been underserved or hiring individuals who are who have barriers to employment.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone is really talking about it, right? Even in
Mm-hmm.
school, we talked a lot about impact and ESG, environmental, social, and governance, and how companies are really shifting the mindset to help support communities and to
Yes.
help support individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the biggest challenge with that is, and we have an employer, a huge employer, worldwide employer, who's really trying to incorporate a pipeline to employment through these underserved communities and through these individuals with barriers. And as we're working with them and we're trying to create this pipeline and we're trying to create this awesome pipeline to employment and to a great career, we start really diving deep into some of the challenges as to why they have had challenges with hiring individuals who are
Mm-hmm.
underserved individuals in these communities. Um, and as I'm asking questions and we're diving deep and we're diving deeper into the why, and a lot of it is retention
Mm-hmm.
and individuals who fall off. And this particular employer is very physically demanding, and so then the question is, why are they dropping off?
Mm-hmm.
It's because they're physically they're hard to these jobs are hard to they're physically demanding. So as a health and wellness geek, I'm like, well, then that's telling of the communities that we're serving. And the Southeast LA, for example, has some of the highest obesity rates in all of the country, and they also have some of the lowest graduation rates in high school and college graduation rates. So the correlation between education and health will tell us that underserved communities, and underserved workers are facing challenges around obesity and physical activity and mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So then the conversation broadens and says, if you really want to invest in underserved communities and underserved populations, then you really have to look at the core of the investment of the community, not just of your business. And
Yes.
that's where the change really happens, when they really start to look at some of these health and wellness components, some of these extracurricular activities, some of these benefits that can be incorporated into this package, so that they can really attract individuals to want to stay. So you're not just a worker, you're a partner. You're here as part of our team, and we care about you physically, mentally, and spiritually. We
Mm.
want you to have a good work-life balance. And that's when the investment really starts happening in communities, because then people start talking about, working for this company who really values the person and the worker. And
Mm.
all this talk about building the infrastructure, like building America back. And for me, it's really about building the hands that are building the infrastructure, right? Building the people that are building the infrastructure.
Mm.
So I say that because as you talk to businesses and we're holding them accountable, these businesses want to know how they can shift and what type of practices. And it just goes back to the beginning, right? Is like, this is what we're learning, right?
Yes.
At the core of it is basic needs, and the ability to feel represented within the company, and within the space, and that goes a long way. On the flip end, if there is no representation and if there's no mindfulness of the wholeness of the person, then that can be really challenging for companies.
Oh my God, you hit such a soft spot for me, because as mentioned when we were talking privately, uh, those are some of the deep conversations that I'm having with a lot of my clients or potential targets, as far as, what do people want? What are they looking for? How can we continue to engage them? And me being honest with them, like, hey, mental health is extremely important. We're caught up with this pandemic. We're caught up with, the jobs, the job increase and not enough workers and so forth. But really when it boils down to, it's how are we treating these individuals? Are we making sure that we're injecting enough to them to make sure that they are growing and they become successful, or they become part of that particular culture? And I think it was through Gary Vee, that for companies, culture is going to be the number one thing in the next 5 years. Not automation, not this, not that. It's culture. So how do you build a tribe? How do you build a culture? Raving fans, they're going to do it. And by doing that, what you said is going to be key and crucial to moving along, to thinking forward, to injecting and investing back into their workforce. So I couldn't agree with you more. Now, you've seen it different than us. How has the pandemic impacted the underserved worker and the community?
Yeah, this question is always it comes up, right? The pandemic and COVID, and how has it impacted, the communities? I mean, this is a very, very deep and personal question. Is even for me, it's impacted all of us. There's been a lot of loss. There's been a lot of growth. There's been we were tested as humans. Absolutely. And I think the biggest impact that it's had on humans is really bringing us more together, in my opinion, and really understanding that we are humans. And that these types of pandemics and epidemics can really, really, impact all of us. And so we know that in impact, and we know that in serving underserved communities and being on different sides of the fence, stuff doesn't really impact us until it impacts us, right? Issues don't really matter until they impact us. If you're talking about certain movements that are happening and certain political machines, and whether you're on this side or that side, up until something happens to you on a personal level or someone that then stuff usually typically matters. So this pandemic impacted all of us. And so the biggest learning, the teachable moment for me was it helped really bring out some of the challenges, the communities that we were serving. It really helped expose some of the challenges that we already knew were there, right?
It just put it up to the forefront.
One example is the tech gap. This is something that we were talking about in workforce development for the past 3-4 years. We knew that by 2025, if individuals in underserved communities or in underserved workers, individuals who are monolingual, the day worker, if they did not learn technology by 2025, for the most part, they would be left behind, right? They were calling it this population that would be left behind. And so what were we doing in workforce development? We were talking about teaching, we were talking about learning computers, learning about technology, really embracing technology. Cut to pandemic. Now everyone knows, to a certain extent, has heard about Zoom, knows about technology, can have conversations around technology, because technology really saved us to a certain extent, right? In terms of our business space. So what we learned is that it shortened the tech gap, in my opinion, but it also exposed the tech gap, right? We knew that communities of color and underserved communities didn't have the same bandwidth, they didn't have the resources, they didn't have the technology that was needed. So they were being left behind, but we already knew that they were being left behind in workforce development. We knew that by 2025, that was kind of the year mark. But now it exposed all of this. And I think that's what everyone's talking about, how this pandemic has exposed, some of these challenges that the communities have been facing. And so now it's on the forefront. And so it really has put individuals like ourselves in a position to really see what we can do.
Yes.
And then also this idea about a benefits cliff. I have a colleague at USC, and she just won a competition around this benefits cliff application, and just really learning about what individuals in underserved communities, what do they need and how much money do they need to ensure that they have um, a livable wage, and that they have the resources needed, and that this dependency of benefits, right? And that there is this cliff, that people are on on these subsidies, and then when they end, like, they literally have this much that is needed, livelihood, right, to a certain extent. And so that has also been exposed, because now we know how much we really need for childcare, what we really need for food, the disparities around education. And so it's all fascinating work around what is needed. And so who's going to pay for that now, right? Is it business, because they're responsible for taking care of their employees? Is it government, because they're responsible for supporting families and communities that are in need? So who's responsible? And I think the question is not who is responsible. I think we all are responsible, but how can we align, workforce, whether it's business, education, and us? How do we make it all work so that communities can be uplifted post-pandemic?
I love that. I think that's going to be more of an off-topic conversation, because that's where I'm at too. How can we create that bridge into all of those topics that you've just mentioned, which is a perfect segue and leads me to my next question. Tell me about some of the new programs that are right now being impacted, and opportunities that are being developed to make a positive impact for the underserved worker. Tell me about those new programs that are being developed.
Yeah, so several new programs. There are a lot of great programs and great work that is happening here in LA County. And I'll give a shout out to the MSSC program at USC, and all my colleagues, all the students who are creating impactful businesses and impactful organizations to ensure that there's more equity, inclusivity, and representation for all people. And so what we're working on at the Miguel Contreras Foundation, most of our programs, if not all of our programs, have a wellness component. So we really feel that wellness, health and wellness, should be part of every conversation when we talk about a worker, when we talk about an underserved worker, an underserved person, an underserved student. That should be at the forefront, right? Health and wellness, physical health and mental health should be incorporated in any of it is incorporated in our programs. We have that one employer that I was talking about earlier, who's trying to keep participants. I think they have like about 60 to 70%, 30% retention rate, and about 70% fall off. We've incorporated this industrial athlete, right? It's this athlete, this person who is physically, mentally, and spiritually in a good space, and they're going to be more productive, and they're going to potentially be more bring something to the team that's going to be more productive, and they're going to create this culture that is more positive. And once you create this team and this culture, then it just grows exponentially. So we're incorporating a lot of the health and wellness in all of our workforce programs. We are also creating this new method of training where individuals are getting paid while they're learning. And so this idea of like, you go to school and that's good enough, right? Then you have an opportunity. But imagine paying students while they're learning. Yeah. That'll solve a lot of problems, right? That'll solve some of these issues around, the earn and learn model. That'll solve some issues around, in the communities that we grew up in, right? I can speak on that. You either work or you go to school, right? And individuals like you and I did both, right? Mm-hmm. Even to this day, work and school, it's something that you just have to balance out. But can you imagine a space where you can go to school and work at the same time, or just earn money while you're growing as a person? And so at the Miguel Contreras Foundation, we feel that's extremely important. So all of our training programs have a component of a stipend or some type of financial support. It's because we know that there are some challenges with going to school and with learning. And so these are some ideas that we're bringing to the table that we hope that are contagious, and that we hope that can really start shifting some of those the ideas around program implementation, and really creating a stronger workforce. Now, this earn and learn model is not new. It's, I've at 14, we both, I think, started working at Hub Cities.
Shout out to Hub Cities.
Shout out to Hub Cities, and all the great people that work there and still work there. But it's this earn and learn model, right? You're learning about work, but you're getting paid. And so that is a great idea. We didn't invent it. It's been around for a long time, but that's something that we will continue to do. And so businesses take advantage of these on-the-job trainings, of these apprenticeship programs, of these, training models where you get to hire someone through subsidies and be able to, teach them the culture, the onboarding process, right? So really teaching individuals about, if we're working with the company, really learning the company's culture, coming in and providing some consultant work, and then getting that and bringing it pre-employment, so that we're teaching individuals about company culture. And yeah, leadership, company culture are huge when it comes to being able to create a stronger pipeline in the workplace.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Music to my ears. I know, you and I, we grew up in humble beginnings. We didn't have things handed to us. So going back to Hub Cities, I was so appreciative because not only were they guiding us as little chamacos, what do we do? Oh my God. No, I loved learning through them. I loved earning through them because I understood what the dollar signified. I understood like how valuable it was, my time, my resources, my knowledge, how to grow, how to be presentable in front of other professionals. I mean, all of that I learned there. And I could see it now as an adult, as a career woman, as a professional. I could totally see it now. So you guys are right there. Now, amigo, I want to really recognize you and your organization for being humble servant leaders, for really leading the change, for really making a difference for our underserved workers and community. My final question to you is, why is serving so important for you? Why is it important?
Yeah, that's a question that I still have not been able to answer myself. I think there is really no answer. It's very spiritual for me. I mean, at an early age, I started working or serving when I was about 10 years old. And the story goes that the reason why I wanted to start serving was because I had a passion for office supplies. To this day, I still love office supplies. But I liked like new crayons, and I liked, as a student. So my kindergarten teacher made a deal. She said, if you help teach the kindergarteners or tutor them, I'll give you some office supplies. And so that was the deal. But little did I know that I was there to tutor, not only for the school supplies, but to be able to teach and encourage at that point younger kids. They were 5 and I was 10, but I really enjoyed being a tutor, and that led to working at Hub Cities in social service. But at the core of it, I think my parents really my dad was a hard worker. He worked for 40 years and he really never missed work. My mom at the core is, a mom, nurtured us and really showed us what love was all about. And then just this connection with my spirituality. I had a really strong connection to this day with this bigger ask of why, and why this person can get this and why can't this person, they would always make fun of me is that I always asked too many questions as a young kid. Why do you like the red car? Why do you like this? Why do you do this? Why do you ask that? And they would, you ask too many questions. It's the curiosity though behind it, but to answer the question, is it's just serving people, right? And the disparities I learned at a very early age really were impactful to me, and just asking as to why is there different pathways for certain people, and how is there certain access points for certain people, and just the love of people. I mean, at the end of the day, I love humans, right? We are human beings, and I studied undergrad in kinesiology, and the study of the human body, because of it was a fascinating machine, and under the skin we are all the same. Under the skin we all have hearts and lungs and this physiological components that we are all the same. And at what point do we become different, right? At what point do we start segregating and becoming different, individuals? And so my goal is to bring us all back to that core component of we are all the same. And really talking about equity and talking about representation with that in mind is we are the same. I would always, in my mind, I would always say I treat the participant just like I treat my executive director or my board member.
Yeah.
And that was very telling of my staff and telling of other individuals that were servants like myself. And I would say, you treat the participant or anyone who walks through these doors, treat them like you would, your board member, because they are the same, in terms of being a human being. And so my love for just serving individuals, and then as you do it, you see this growth in people, and it's just contagious, right? You see people succeeding, and you see people being encouraged. And right now, during our conversation earlier, you asked, was how did it feel to graduate with my master's? Seeing the joy of everyone around this event, and just being able to make the connection, right, as individuals. So connecting the dots, connecting human beings, and really coming down to like what an equitable kind of space for everyone that we serve.
Amigo, thank you so very much. Tell the audience where they could locate you and a little bit about the Miguel Contreras Foundation.
Yeah, so the Miguel Contreras Foundation is a nonprofit, and we are primarily focused on creating pathways to employment for great careers in the union space as well. Oh, I told you about the 4-year-old, the interruption.
Hi! Oh.
Can you see him?
I love it.
I'm in a meeting, son. And so you can find more information at miguelcontreras.org. And you can also connect with me on LinkedIn, Armando Loza. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me where else, on Facebook. I'll shoot you my email, and I'd love to continue the conversation around creating additional pipelines to employment, and really strengthening, the workers in LA County, and positioning them for employment into great careers, union careers with benefits, and then holding companies accountable for how they treat their workers, and really trying creating these pipelines. And so yeah, I'm pretty easy to find.
Well, thank you so much. You said it best, holding companies accountable to make sure that we all grow and we all enrich. So thank you so very much for your time.
Yeah.
Did you love this information? Well, comment below. I look forward to your feedback. Again, my name is Carolyn Plascencia, and you just entered into the PFE Video Series. Thank you so much, Armando.
Thank you.